I'll start the broadcast. All right, broadcast should be started.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So my name is Dan Mosley. I'm the fisheries director for the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. So I'm going to just talk about the effects of wildfire smoke on our waters here at the lake and also on our hatchery program. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and just kind of show you the watershed. We're within the Truckee River watershed, and which starts in California, Nevada, in the Sierra Nevadas. And there's 120 miles of river that flows through Reno Sparks and eventually ends in Pyramid Lake, which is entirely within the Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation. And so we have two species of concern here. One is kuiui in our language, which is the name of our fish that's endangered, and the other one is Lahontan Cutthroat Trout. And this slide right here is showing the drought monitor of the U.S., how dry the soils have been really dry, especially the last couple of years, and so it's really conducive to wildfire. And this is a picture of a wildfire that started back in August, and I was driving through the area, and that was the beginning of the wildfires. And they started like in July, beginning of July. Our area has been under heavy smoke for off and on for like 5 weeks. But from these fires, they carry ammonia gases, and also the ash that's falling out. This fire right here, you can see the ash was falling on our cars and the areas where we're at. This is a reservation right here on the California-Nevada line. This is the Washoe Tribal Reservation that was in that area at that time. And this is Pyramid Lake, picture of Pyramid Lake. You can see how heavy the smoke is. You can't even see the mountains on the other side, which are about 5 to 6, 7 miles across on the other side of the lake. And this is what we're coming to work to every morning. And you see that's totally affecting our lake. This right here is one of our local TV broadcasts, a weatherman showing how dense the fire smokes are in our area. Pyramid Lake's right above Reno within that blue zone, the heavy smoke. So the smoke was moderating between the unhealthy range to above the hazardous range. In the Lake Tahoe area, where there are 2 wildfire smokes, they were right on the front edge of it. Their levels, the air quality index was going up to over 900 and sometimes, and so it's really high and really unhealthy for people to go out in conditions like that, animals or anything. But all of that smoke and ash was falling on Lake Tahoe, so you can imagine the impacts on Lake Tahoe and all the streams. There's, I believe, over 60 perennial streams that flow into Lake Tahoe, and so those guys were on our right in the front edge of it. And we're about 50 miles from the active fires, the Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation, as the eagle flies. So this is data from our air quality monitoring station from one of our staff here. That she's one that generated this graph for me, and from 2.5, the particulate matter is 2.5, and you can see from August. This is the data she got from August to September. And you can see how high the levels were. They're basically averaging over 100. And sometimes one time it reached over 400, really unhealthy range in Nixon, Nevada. And where we're at, Sutcliffe, where my office is at, it was really high here. She also You see, this is one of our hatcheries, the Ammonia hatchery, and right there you're looking at the cooling towers on the left and the chillers on the right. And this is actually a clear day when I took this photo, but this area is in a canyon on the Truckee River that flows into Pyramid Lake. And this has been really inundated with wildfire smoke. So when a wildfire smoke hits their cooling tower, it's like a swamp cooler. You know, when you don't want to operate your swamp coolers during when there's a lot of heavy smoke outside because it go right into your homes. Well, this is pulling, this cooling tower is pulling wildfire smoke, carrying ammonia gases. This is cooling water that goes right into our hatcheries, right into our pools where our Lahontan Cutthroat Trout are. So the levels are going, at one time was going really high. Our ammonia levels are going to reach up to toxic levels. And these are the fins that are inside that cooling tower. And so water goes through there, and the winds help cool it, just like a radiator in a car. But when it's mixed with wildfire smoke with ammonia gases, it'll get right into the water that goes right into our hatchery. And so this is in 2019. These are the ammonia levels. We have our own water quality lab, so we're able to go out and get our water samples and analyze them that same day. And you can see we're on the blue lines on ionized ammonia, where it's reaching toxic levels for our fish. So this is inside of our hatchery. We also put a air monitoring instrument inside our buildings, and because there's a lot of leaks in our buildings, so that wildfire smoke can go right into our buildings and affect our fish inside too. And you can see these are the pools where we keep our fish. So what we had to do is flush out the pool. We recycle our water, so we had to turn that feature off and just put in fresh water from our well. We had to lower the water and get the fish out. And what we did is we moved a lot of fish, transferred them right into the river. The rivers were high. The river flows were high that year in 2019, so we're able to plant fish right into the river. And we reduced our densities in the hatchery almost by half. So we moved all fresh water into the pools. This is us planting the fish into the Truckee River, our crews from the hatchery there in the Ammonia hatchery. And as soon as we did that, we flushed out the system. The ammonia level, unionized ammonia levels went right down. That's what this graph right here is depicting. Is when we took our test several days later, after we moved fresh water in there and lowered the density of the fish in our pools. This is an air monitoring station, a unit that has to be connected to an outlet, and that we're setting up our hatchery there at the Ammonia hatcheries between Wadsworth, Nevada and Nixon, Nevada on the reservation. This is that same mobile unit. So this goes right up to it's connected to Wi-Fi, and the data immediately goes and uploaded into a web. So, and you have the option of making this public or not, making it private. So this one is actually private, so only the air monitoring person could see the data. But we have at Sutcliffe, we have actually a public one that we have at our hatchery here. And this is our Tanda Roberts. She's our air quality specialist, setting up the smoke monitor. And then this is our water sampling. This picture is showing, this is Pyramid Lake, and we're actually going out in the lake and getting water samples. And we're also filtering this water. And we had a person from Desert Research Institute from Las Vegas. She came out and she's studying different lakes and the impacts of wildfire smoke on the lakes. And so she would filter the water samples, and she's using the ash, looking at the ash, but particularly she's looking at the black and brown carbon. And this is new science, but she's looking at different area of lakes and looking at this carbon and seeing how it relates to climate change. So she came out to our lake, and after about 4 weeks of heavy smoke, and she said later she told me of all the lakes, she got the best data from Pyramid Lake. So we haven't seen the results yet from our study, but we took her out in the lake to get these samples. So this is a closer shot of how big. You can't really, we didn't put a ruler or a measurement down there, but the ash fallout was pretty big. Not only that, but the wildfire smoke has ammonia gases that was coming into our lake also. So here's a beaker showing how big the ashes were from the lake, from the wildfire. And so when we actually went out, did our water sampling, the ammonia levels were higher than normal. So the surface level from 0 to 5 meters, we get a sample from there, we mix the water. So the ammonia levels, the total ammonia levels were it's 0.025 milligrams per liter. Then 10 meters down, it dropped down a little bit. And 20 meters, it dropped down a little bit more. So when we actually looked at the graph, and at the very bottom is 0.41. I'll go back again. So 0.41 is a lot higher than this. So this ammonia levels weren't toxic in Pyramid Lake, but they were higher in the upper water column. So this is August 24th. So during August, we have the tui chubs is the minnow that we have in the lake, and they get up to 10 inches, 12 inches long, and that's primarily what our big trout feed on. About 90% of what they feed on is the tui chubs. But the tui chubs, they usually are feeding in the upper water column. They're feeding on zooplankton, phytoplankton, and they school. And so those guys they could be affected by a wildfire smoke. And so we don't know the impacts from wildfire smoke on our fish, but this is kind of interesting to me. This is what we're trying to protect out in the lake is these our cutthroat trout. But so I was kind of doing some research, and let me go one more slide, and I'll talk from here, and then I'll take questions. But this is our pre-COVID when our spawn channel, the fish come up our spawn channel, and we get fish. We take the eggs from the fish and the milk from the males, and we take the fertilized eggs to our hatcheries, and we have a lot of tour groups that come, and so a lot of native schools, classes with native students, they come, and we teach them about the whole fish spawning process. That I'll just talk a little bit about what fires can do. Fires can cause immediate changes in water chemistry of the streams and the water bodies, that's near those wildfires, and the byproduct of heating and from the smoke and the ash inputs during the burning process affects the water chemistry in our water bodies. So if you have baseline data, if you're going out to your streams, your lakes, wetlands, if you got some baseline data, and then later you could come back and you could check the effects of wildfire. So I would do total phosphorus and orthophosphate, and I would test for ammonia too, total ammonia, but also unionized ammonia, total ammonia, and unionized ammonia. Check those levels and what they're doing. And so, of course, immediately by the fire, you can get elevated water temperatures. elevated water temperatures near wildfire can reduce the solubility of dissolved oxygen, and it can increase the pH and nutrient levels in small streams. So one of the things we're concerned about in our lake is we have input from the ash, and we got phosphorus, and then from the ammonia gases, you got ammonia, and plus the heating of the lake in August, we get algal blooms out here, and so we might see an increase of algal blooms in the future from the effects of wildfire smoke. So we're just, we're east of the Sierra Nevadas, Pyramid Lake, and it's a big basin. So when we get these wildfire smokes, it just goes right into the valleys, and it settles right into the basin where Pyramid Lake is, and then it goes down the canyon area where a hatchery is. So that's how these wildfire smokes affects us. So during peak fires, temperatures of water bodies will obviously can increase in reducing dissolved oxygen levels, and that could affect aquatic life. But also post wildfires, when you get heavy rains, and especially around mountain areas, all the sediment and the ash and the stuff from the wildfires, it all flow right into our creeks and wetlands and water bodies that are, just downhill from these wildfires. So we've seen cutthroat populations almost wiped out. In one case, they were wiped out. Some stream that was wiped out by a Nevada wildfire. So these wildfires, seem like they're increasing every year with these dry soils. They could burn longer into the winter, into fall, winter, and that's what people are watching. They're really concerned about the effects of these wildfires in really dry conditions. Of course, trout, the trout in these streams that can be really affected. Even short exposures of ammonia levels. If fish are exposed to these short exposures of high ammonia levels, it can lead to skin, eye, and damage in the gills of the fish. So that's why we're really watching the hatchery. But when you're out in the environment, it's, the fish are going to be, they could be really affected. And also all the aquatic life, we got amphibians out there, frogs, or other wildlife, they could be really affected. It could also cause damage in the liver and kidneys. And elevated levels of ammonia poisoning can suppress their normal ammonia excrement from the excrement from the gills of fish. So it can affect how fish can metabolize and get rid of waste products. When it's too high in their system, that's when it can really affect them, and it results in the damage in their internal organs. So these are the things we're trying to prevent in our hatcheries. It's controlled so we can watch it. Our staff they're always watching not only the dissolved oxygen and temperature, but we're also watching the ammonia levels in our hatcheries. Anyway, that's all I have, but I could take any questions.
So the people listening can't directly ask questions. They have to check the chat on the main page. And here, I can ask for you. I see a couple questions in here.
Okay.
Heidi asks, what are the baseline levels of ammonia?
That depends on your water body. So that's you know that answer by going out and actually getting what you collecting water samples and having them analyzed, and you get to see where your baseline is for your water body. And then when you have something like wildfire smoke coming into your area, then you can see how that's changed from your baseline. So every water body is different.
James asks, how do elevated levels of nutrients last after fire? Or sorry, how long do elevated levels of nutrients last after fire?
It depends on the density and how long the fire has impacted your area. And so these are the things that researchers right now are trying to find out, like a Lake Tahoe, the UC Davis, the research group, and also University of Nevada, Reno, C.D. Chandra, they're up there studying the impacts of these fires in Lake Tahoe, because Lake Tahoe is like a pristine, they call it illegal trophic lake. It's normally neutrally poor, low levels of ammonia and phosphorus, but with these impacts from wildfires, the nutrient levels are rising. So they're studying that right now, and we are too here at Pyramid Lake. So it's kind of like a new thing. We really need to monitor our water bodies really close, and so yeah, that's yet to be determined.
Follow-up question from Heidi about the ammonia, asking what is it for your Pyramid Lake baseline?
For ours, I'll go back to our graph. So you can see here in our hatchery water, for unionized ammonia, it's about 0.06. And then for the nitrite, it's near zero. So it's really low. So then we actually move out like into a river. It's a little bit higher, but we have low levels out here. Pyramid Lake's pretty good water quality out here. So any higher levels, we'll spot it. What we try to do is figure, why is our ammonia levels rising, or phosphorus levels rising, and it's so that's how you try to troubleshoot and try to figure things out. So, but our baseline levels here are pretty low.
Debbie asks, what brand of tests do you use?
So we actually use, like, when you take your water sample to a regular lab, so we do those same kind of tests. So we don't use a hot kit or anything else like that. These simple, quick tests that you use. We have a full-blown lab that we had since the early 80s. And so it's like going to a regular laboratory, and it's standard methods of doing a test. So that's what we use.
Sophia just asks, do you find that first flush storm events post-wildfire have the greatest negative impacts on aquatic life, including elevated levels of ammonia, impacts on cutthroat trout, etc., or is it typically right after the fire?
It's like both, but it's worse when you have a big rainstorm event that flushes everything right into a stream, because all the sediment and everything, it just robs the stream of all the habitat and oxygen, and it could be disastrous for all aquatic life.
Jose asks, how does ammonia affect your pH levels in Pyramid Lake? Does it increase it?
Yeah, our lake is already high in pH, so it doesn't increase it. No, because our pH level right now is like 9.4, so it's pretty high because it's a terminal lake, and so the alkalinity, the conductivity, the pH levels are high. So our trout are actually, over thousands and thousands of years, they're acclimated to these higher pH levels that we have in the lake. So because of that, this lake is a really good buffer against other effects, of things coming into our lake. It's also when quagga mussels, we're doing a survivability test right now for quagga mussels, and within 24 hours, all the quagga mussels we got, they in the study they died in Pyramid Lake water. So the lake's a pretty good buffer because of the higher pH connectivity.
Debbie asks, everything near Lake Oroville has burned, and I cannot find any info on current testing. I don't think it's being tested at all. So do you know where she could locate Lake Oroville or any other lake testing information?
That'd be a good question for the California people, but you'd have to go to the regional board, the regional water quality board for that area, and I can't remember what region where the head office is for Oroville, but I would go to them and ask them if they should have data, because they have water quality standards for that lake, so they should have data. But the state, I would go to the state to start with them, and but also if you go into one of these side chats or work groups or the California work group session, ask some of those people like Sarah Ryan, for Big Valley, she's environmental director there, or Sherry Norris, she might know. There's people that would know where to get that data.
Yeah, if you go to the lobby page under the lounges, there should be a water quality one. Might be worth asking it there.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And that looks like, so far, that's the last question. So I'll give it a few seconds, see if anybody has any last questions. Otherwise, if there's anything you want to close with, summarize, let people know how to contact you.
Yeah, so I'm with Pyramid Lake Fisheries, and my emails, like my name, D as in Dan Mosley, Mosley, at plpt.nsn.us. So Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, plpt.nsn, like Nevada Sovereign Nations.us. That's my email. But if you Google my name, Daniel Mosley, Pyramid Lake Fisheries, you'll probably see my contact information.
Great. Oh, two more questions. One I missed, I guess, and then one final one. So I'll start with the one I missed moments ago. Are there any localized strategies you know of to mitigate some of the effects? Or is the best option to tackle the larger issues like forest management, thinning, prescribed fire, etc.?
Yeah, it's by tackling the larger issues, and then on the local level, like what we're doing in our hatcheries, the way we mitigate wildfire smoke is we flush out the system, reduce the density of the fish in our pools. But also we noticed that in the last 2 years, we bought a new, we're using an older cooling tower. And so through our BIAs, they have a hatchery maintenance grant. And so we're able to purchase a brand new cooling tower and also a chiller over the last 2 years. So we noticed this year we had no more spikes in ammonia levels. So, but also our staff is really watching, again, taking water chemistry, at least once a week, water samples to make sure and also watching the behaviors of the fish, watching the fish behavior. But that's something we'll do. But when you have a water bodies that's out in the environment and it's directly affected by wildfire smoke, that's something we're all trying to figure out how to mitigate that. So
James asks, how much does natural spawning versus hatcheries contribute to cutthroat populations in Pyramid Lake?
We have both going on. So the hatchery is a Band-Aid on the system, but we have a lot of natural spawning occurring in the Truckee River. So, but we're entering these drought years now, so our river flows are really low this year. And so we're hoping to get a big snowpack. But when the river flows are really low, that's when the hatcheries keep the fishery going from year to year and make sure we got those different age classes of fish in our lake. And but the hatcheries are Band-Aid or wish our fish could spawn like they normally do, but because of all the upstream dams, diversion dams, and everything, it's just, it's just challenge. So for us.
Here's a question just for me, thinking about, your talk and everything. Do you think, obviously the first couple of years after a fire are going to be pretty rough on the fish, but I'm wondering if you'll see maybe an increase in algae and some of the invertebrates and things, and then that might lead to a boom year down the road where you're going to have a lot of food available?
Yeah, the productivity of the lake is when we see a big jump in the biomass of phytoplankton, zooplankton, and is when we get large flows from spring runoff from snowmelt. So when we have a high snowpack and the river flows are really high, that's like to me it's a booster shot into the productivity of this lake. That's where we get, and that's really a positive thing for the lake. But as far as wildfire smoke, the negative things from wildfire smoke, we might see an increase of harmful algal blooms in our lake.
Lori asks, are any of the upstream dams slated for removal?
Not on our river, unfortunately. It would put community, if they did that, one of our diversion dams upstream is Derby Dam, can divert up to half of our water that would normally go to Pyramid Lake into another basin, out of basin. And that was one of BOR, Bureau of Reclamation's first reclamation project back in 1904, 1905. The dam was completed, and when they put that dam in, our lake dropped. We lost 80 feet of water in Pyramid Lake elevation. We also lost a Winnemucca Lake, because our lake wasn't terminal at that point. At that time, our lake would fill to a point and flow into another shallower lake basin. But when that diversion dam was put in, it was put in to start agricultural communities in the Fallon area of Nevada. And so if we took those dams out, those guys wouldn't have no water. And so they need that water. So we don't see those dams going out. It's unfortunate, but so what they did is they put a fish bypass there, and for fish coming back down, they put a fish screen on the canal that that diverts water out of basin. So what we need is more snow in the mountains, and that'll satisfy everybody's needs.
I think that's all the questions so far, but I'll give it a few seconds here, see if anybody has any final questions before we wrap up. Great. I'm not seeing any final questions, just some thank yous. And it was a great presentation. And you already said where they can contact you. But, we have one last question. Somebody just popped in. What was the other nitrogen we should test for?
So unionized ammonia. And I think nitrates, nitrites. And total ammonia. So in a normal, during your water quality monitoring, that's something you normally want to test for anyway, in your wetlands and your rivers and streams. And also for phosphorus, or total phosphorus, and orthophosphate are dissolved reactive phosphorus. So orthophosphate and dissolved reactive phosphorus is that part of phosphorus that's readily available for algae uptake. So the more orthophosphate that you have in your water bodies, the higher the chance you have for algal blooms. So that's, to me, it's more important to test for those than total phosphorus. And that we've been doing that in our lake and our water bodies since the 80s. And we have, if you want to look at Pyramid Lake, just Google Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribes or water quality standards. And there's a scientific justification. There's a section on phosphorus and a section on nitrogen. And you can read those and get a more scientific explanation of why we do those tests.
Great. Thank you again. It looks like that's our last question. So, and if people want to reach out to you, obviously you said your contact, but you can also go through, if you go to the lobby, there's a link for people, and they should be able to contact you through there too, via the Excel events.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much. This has been a great talk. Great presentation.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and stop broadcast, and thank you everybody for joining.